Rebel Scum podcast is live, driving home, and not paying attention to the road. Welcome. I'm Andrew
Driving home
Fantasia.
for Andor.
Andor doesn't know how to drive, James. That's canon.
He could fly a plane like nobody's business.
Well, that's true, but have we ever seen him get behind the wheel of a vehicle, a ground-based vehicle? No. Yes? No. I don't remember. It's been a long series.
You know what? We are one episode longer than everything. 2 episodes longer than Boba Fett, I believe, and an episode longer than all the Mando seasons. I want to say so. This is the most Star Wars for one story we've ever gotten. I think
it is, and there's still a trilogy of episodes left. So who knows what's going to happen?
Never more than 12, Andrew. Never more than. We should say spoilers for episodes 1 through 9 of Andor. Let's let everyone know in case they haven't figured it out.
Episode 9 has. Last time we did a driving home, I said I couldn't figure out which of the episodes I liked the most. The answer is 9.
Yeah.
Now. The answer is clearly 9.
Which is intriguing because you'd think of all the episodes that would be like anyone's favorite, it would be the heist episode, right? That's when I had the most action. It was very intense. But I might be with you on episode 9. Do you know what this episode did for me? Is every time we've done 3 of these now, and every one that we've done, I've kind of been like, this is a binge watching series, and I've decided that there are movies, there are episodic like weekly shows, and then there's binge watching shows. And they're just, for me, it's just 3 separate categories of entertainment. And this show, Boba Fett was binge, Obi-Wan was binge, and this one was binge. But this week, episode 9 was the first one that I felt like it belonged in like the weekly episodic one. This one felt like an episode. Like it started, it ended, it made you want more, but it felt very contained also.
It did. It felt contained, but there's a feeling to this show that doesn't feel like other Disney Plus shows, Star Wars or Marvel, for that matter. It feels more just like the way everything looks and the way everything is paced, and the very gradual drip of characters that we got, especially in the first 4 episodes, feels more like an HBO show to me. It feels like a show where they're taking their time, they're laying lots of groundwork for something that has a beginning, middle, and end, and they're not. I don't know. There's a certain feeling, there's a certain flavor to Disney Plus shows, and this doesn't have that flavor. And even though I love the Disney Plus shows, I really do think that this is a flavor I prefer. You know what I mean?
Think what you're talking about is it's the people call it it's that mature, the more mature look to it, the way where they're not playing with the green screen volume toys. I mean, they're obviously it's all there, but it is more, I guess, grounded would be what they used to say like 15 years ago. It's more grounded, and I think, and that all comes from this is, it is a Star Wars show. But I said this on last week's podcast with Brock. It's like, this is a Star Wars show, but it's not a Star Wars show the way The Mandalorian is a Star Wars show. This is a Rogue One show. This is a prequel to Rogue One. So it has to fit that Rogue One aesthetic. So it definitely should look and feel very different from Mandalorian and what we've gotten in the past. And I really like it. It's probably like, and I say this all the time, I gotta wait to see the whole series before I give it this is the greatest one we've gotten. It's definitely up there for me, but I know there's a lot of people that don't really dig this show. It's a little bit too, I guess, slow, I guess is what people are saying. Like slow, like it builds, and it doesn't have that Star Wars funness to it that we typically get with stuff. Or even Rogue One, there was that cut of Rogue One that was like too dark and too wars, so they went back and Star Wars it up. This one they didn't bother doing that. They just said let's just see how this goes, and I'm really enjoying it. But at the same time, Andrew, I don't necessarily want to see every Star Wars go in this direction. I would like to see more. I feel like you have to know what part of Star Wars you're working in, and this is working in the Rogue One part of Star Wars, and so this this makes perfect sense for what we're getting with Andor.
I don't want Star Wars to stick with this flavor either, but I love having the option. Star Wars should be an all-you-can-eat buffet. You should be able to, go to this giant table and be like, okay, I can watch the pod race, and then I can also watch Bix Colleen being tortured, and it can all feel like it lives in the same world. But I don't ever want to feel like Disney is trying to pull punches and trying to make everything soft and smooth down the edges because they're trying to be, quote, on brand. I get it, Disney, you want to be family friendly, whatever the hell that even means anymore. But the fact of the matter is, fans are going to respect you more as a company if you let artists make things like this, if you let them make stuff like Andor.
Look, this is, yeah, absolutely. This is Empire Strikes Back. This is like the Dark Knight of Star Wars. And I don't even necessarily mean like in quality of storytelling. I just mean like, the Dark Knight, I think universally is agreed upon that it is an excellent movie. But how many 7-year-olds are clamoring to watch The Dark Knight? Like it's meant for a different audience and it works for that audience, but not all Star Wars needs or should be for that audience. And I think what Disney Plus gives you is that benefit of telling different stories in different styles to the same audience but different. Those 7-year-olds aren't going to be 7 forever, and they might grow into this. Like a lot of, I think, kids grew into Empire Strikes Back way back, and that's just what it is. I think it it's different times, and Disney, like having the episodes, having series now gives them that opportunity to do all this and not have to worry, because guess what? In a few months, Mandalorian season 3 is coming, and we're all gonna, we'll all forget about Andor, and some people will be like, I wish this was more like Andor, and some people will be like, oh, I'm glad we're back to the swashbuckling fun of Star Wars. But either way, it's moving on. We're gonna get it. So, and then Andor season 2 is gonna come, Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka, all that fun stuff, and then Andrew, the X Factor, Acolyte. Who the heck knows what that's gonna be? I'm kind of hoping that this show is giving it leeway to kind of be whatever it needs to be.
Well, we all know before we get any of those things, we're going to definitely get the Lando series because they said we would.
Yep.
Well, first of all, the chat is very lively, and that makes me happy because Dale Erdman.
Oh man, I can't even see it.
You can't see the chat because you're in a car paying attention to the stupid road like a jerk. But Jonathan Davis is here, so is Dale Erdman, so is Mr. Rez, and they're talking about how much they love Days of Our Lives and The Dark Knight, and how much they hate Star Wars. And I couldn't agree with you guys more.
That sounds like all of them.
Yes. Let's play a little game in the chat right now. All the people in the chat, here's a little game we're going to play. I want you to try to come up with the name of the cereal that Cyril Karn eats. What is it called?
Did it have a name?
I don't know. Let's make one up. What is it called? I want to know. Come up with your best name ideas for that cereal.
Jawa berries.
Utini berries.
Utini.
I'm one of those people, and if I was canon, James, what I'm about to say would automatically revoke my canon card, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm one of those strange people who I got so into the other Star Wars shows just in terms of, watching them and enjoying them and whatnot. I never noticed the volume the way everybody else in the world seems to notice the volume and be like, this doesn't look good because it's on a volume and we can tell. I can't tell. I'm blind to that stuff. I'm too busy paying attention to the story and the characters and praying that Hasbro releases Black Series of them in this country, which they never will. So I'm just completely blind to that complaint that apparently millions of people had about those shows. However, I can definitively say, even though I can't notice the volume and the limitations that it apparently gives those shows, I can notice the difference in how Andor looks and how much just more dense and more like
wait.
it looks.
I want to cut you off right there because the volume was used in the Batman, which had the same cinematographer as Rogue One, but it was used in the Batman on all those rooftop scenes. And I know what you're saying, and I agree. Andor is the nicest looking of all those shows. I'm not going to argue that at all. But I do argue against people complaining about the volume now. Now, when Reva McEntire is running, and you can clearly tell she's running in front of the volume because she's not moving, then I'm like, okay, you took me out a little bit. But for the most part, I don't notice it either. A lot of people are like, oh, I noticed it. I think a lot of people are BSing on that. But you can't, like, I don't think anyone can tell me that the Batman rooftop scenes look any worse than what we've seen in Andor at all. The Batman is, I think, a great looking film, and those rooftop scenes are excellent looking as well. So I think the volume, while it you know, I don't think you can run in front of the volume, but I don't think I don't think it would change the way you would make it look. I think it's the cinematography, Andrew, and I think the way Favreau show runs those shows is very specific. It's very, like, you can't tell me those shows don't look like Star Wars shows. And so I think, or look like Star Wars, I should say. So I agree 100% that this is the best looking one, but it's also the least Star Wars looking one. So I wouldn't put any of that blame on the volume. I know everybody else on the planet will, and there are limitations. And I think running is the biggest one for me. But I don't think that's the reason why this is the nicest looking Star Wars film. I think it's Tony Gilroy's approach to it, the more mature look versus the Favreau Star Wars, Star Wars made for 12-year-old approach. And I'm not knocking one and praising the other in any regard. I'm just saying they're two different approaches to the way. It's like Iron Man 1 looks similar to Mandalorian, maybe, but with a higher budget.
Yeah.
Favreau made Elf.
Favreau made Elf, so everything he does is fine. I'm curious, if anybody listening to this, I want somebody to send me a clip of Reva running where it looks bad, because I didn't. All of this went over my head. I want to know if there's a clip out there. Like, I really want to know what this looks like.
It's the episode of Obi-Wan, Andrew, where Obi-Wan goes to rescue Leia when Leia gets abducted for the 100th time. And Obi-Wan goes and he puts her like under his jacket, and everybody hated that, but I was like, that's fine. And then after that, Reva runs, and it's like she's just moving her shoulders. That was the first time that I was like, oh, that looks rough.
Oh, okay, that's episode 4.
It wasn't even like the effects or anything. It was literally just, it looked like she was just moving her shoulders. But I don't remember what episode that was. It might have been 4 or 5 or.
4 was the one at the Inquisitor Fortress, and I think that's where
it was that one. Then it was that one. Yeah. And that's the only time. Like, I mean, there are times you start to notice because your eyes are getting, if you want to scrutinize, I'm sure you can. And I'm with you. I don't really want to. But that definitely was something that I noticed. And then,
I also read not too long ago that a lot of actors say being on the volume gives them vertigo. It makes them queasy because every time they take a step and the camera follows, their whole vision changes to compensate. Like, they can see it changing. And I'm just imagining being an actor on that thing. I made a movie with you where absolutely nothing happened, and all of a sudden I was on the ground ready to throw up. Remember? So imagine me being on the volume. I think Dave Filoni would pull me aside and be like, you can't be in Star Wars.
Passed out. Yeah, so, that was a moment in time. I didn't even know until later what was going on, because I was like consumed with like, that was a movie we did last summer, Dead as the Night. There was a lot going on for me with that. And we won't go into it, but you need to drink water and less coffee. I think is this on hot July days, more water, less coffee.
That's the moral of the story. Thankfully, there's some water right here, I promise.
Yeah. Well, look, the volume, I think the one thing, and James Cameron brought this up with The Force Awakens, how it didn't really move the needle technologically, which is something Star Wars is always known to. The volume did that. The Mandalorian did that. That's what Star Wars is good at and known for. And Andor is not utilizing it. It doesn't need to either. It's really good. I will say, for all of the praise I give Andor, I feel like it still needs like 3 more aliens to show up, because it's like he's in prison now.
Yeah.
And you can tell what is annoying me, Andrew, is you can tell they're purposely not putting aliens in it, and it's like, well, maybe just throw one in. Just throw one in. It's like when you watch the sequel trilogy, like they're purposely not giving us the aliens we know. Like you can see through that. Just give me an alien. I mean, they gave us Peanuts in the beach, so I'm just hoping that we get more in the future. And Saw Gerrera still had his aliens with him, the partisan aliens, which was great.
Saw Gerrera's, I mean, I don't know how much more he's got this season, but if they're saving him for season 2, that kind of makes me excited because that means they're really playing the long game.
I think it's just, well, season 2, don't forget, is going to be four years long. Like it's going to take place over the course of 4 years.
Yeah.
Every 3 episodes being 1 year. Look, I think the next 3 episodes are going to be something wild. I think Saw Gerrera is going to have an impact because Luthen went to go see him. Something's going down. Like they're going to catch. I didn't know what was going on with Luthen. It feels like they're going to catch up to him eventually. The Empire is. So something's going down with him. Mon Mothma's cousin, obviously, being a big part of all of this, and maybe they're going to use like Val's death to get Mon Mothma to be the Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi. Like leave the. I don't really know. By the way, my favorite part of the episode might have been when the senators were turning off their pods. Like, shut up, Mon. Shut up. Nobody cares. Nobody cares, Mon.
Isn't this a great way to kind of show us exactly what Tarkin meant in A New Hope when he told Vader that the Imperial Senate has been dissolved? Because look how useless it is. And this is 5 years before A New Hope, and it's already becoming just a useless place. When you live in a dictatorship, there's no point of getting together in a giant mushroom and floating around and start throwing ideas. Speaking of Vel, to me, she had the funniest line of the episode, maybe the funniest line of the series, when she's kind of taking her little jabs at Perrin, and he's telling her she's got to get married because she hasn't found a husband, and she just kind of looks at him and scoffs and says, "Well, all the good ones are taken." That was a sick burn, if there ever was one. That might be the sickest Star Wars burn ever. We got to put that in a plaque and mount it on the wall.
I still can't figure out Perrin.
Nobody can.
Like I'm not sure how I feel about this guy. I know how I'm supposed to feel about this character, but I'm not sure how I feel about the character yet. Do you know what I mean? Like last week, I really got vibes of something else was going on. This week, clearly none of those vibes were present. So I'm just like, where, and the daughter, like you gotta think there's something going on to have these characters in it. At first, you're like, oh, just to show how Mon Mothma's living, and then it's like, no, the husband's become a regular on this show. Like the husband's not, like showing up for a cameo. He's a character. He's part of this series, a big part, bigger part than I anticipated ever. Mm-hmm. So I'm really curious where they're going. Val obviously being a cousin, and this is so typical of this show when they're like, your cousin's here. Is like, who's her cousin? Is her cousin Ahsoka? Is her cousin Leia? No, her cousin's Val, the character from this show.
And we all know Val is Snoke. So
I thought Kino Loy was Snoke. By the way, Andy Serkis once again proving my point that he is the most underutilized character actor in Hollywood. Once again, and I'm sticking with it. He's the most underutilized character actor in Hollywood. If this was the 1940s, he would have a 17-picture deal with Universal, and he would show up as every background, like every secondary character in every Universal movie forever. But for some reason, all he gets is like hopefully Matt Reeves directs another movie and brings him in, because all he gets is Circus. All he gets is Caesar, and his. By the way, his Jungle Book. Have you seen the Jungle Book that he directed?
No, I want to.
Good movie. Mm-hmm. Better than I expected. I'll tell you that. Better than I expected. Anyway, he was phenomenal in this episode.
Oh, Kino's transition from just like the pit boss of this place where they're making construction materials, I guess, for the Empire, who's just like this surly guy who just shows up, and last week we're like, oh cool, Andy Serkis has a little part, to becoming this integral character who is going to be the one who, it looks like the one who helps Cassian break out of this prison, because we know the dude doesn't spend the rest of his life in that prison. So that turning point for him of seeing this old man die, Uther or whatever the old man's name is, seeing him die, realizing that everything the Empire is feeding them in this prison is a lie. They're never getting out. It's essentially just a concentration camp, a forced labor camp, and you just get recycled like a piece of trash because that's all Palpatine thinks of you. To see the disenfranchisement he goes through, and he stops being this hopeful guy who's just looking forward to getting out, and he becomes something much more dangerous to the Empire. Mwah! I can't, like, there's no, I have no words. I have no words for how good that is, just from a writing standpoint, how interesting that is, and how just completely tense and exciting and action-packed it can be. And nobody fires a single shot in this whole episode. Nobody turns on a lightsaber. Nobody says Bantha Poodoo. There's the confrontation is all happening in a much more subdued way, but it is happening. Let me take a look at the chat and let's see what cereals people have come up with. Mr. Rez said the cereal is called Force Balls. That would be grossly unappetizing. I think I'd buy a box of Force Balls just once, but I have a feeling, Rez, Palpatine wouldn't stand for that. He'd be like, he doesn't want people talking about the Force. He wants them to forget it exists. So I think he would get that cereal discontinued, make them change their name to, I don't know, midi-chlorian balls or something else. And let's see, anybody else got any? Dale is saying they're called Blue Bantha Puffs. You know what? I can get on board with that because we know, I don't know how, I can't remember where, but we heard it somewhere. We know banthas produce milk. You can, in fact, milk a bantha. I haven't tried yet, but it's apparently canon. They've got milk in them. So maybe it's meant to go hand in hand with bantha milk. You buy a box of Blue Bantha Puffs would be the same here as buying a box of Blue Cow Puffs, although I don't think that would go over too well here. But Blue Bantha Puffs, that works for me. That works for me. I would also have accepted Count Sithula and let's see, Coruscant Crunch. I think I would eat a bowl of Coruscant Crunch. That sounds like something I would get into. All right. James is caught in a dead zone. There was no internet where he is, so he can only kind of sort of hear me. But I'm going to throw out a question here because we were talking about Perrin and Mon Mothma's daughter, whose name escapes me, unfortunately. I'm sorry, daughter. But we've talked about this. And James, we have mentioned in the past how Perrin and the daughter could very well, or rather, Perrin and or the daughter could very well be doing some rebel stuff on their own, right? They could very well be involved in some rebellious activities. Mothma doesn't know. We also just talked like 5 minutes ago about how something is going to switch in Mothma's brain and she's going to start playing a bit more fast and loose with these rules that she's playing by. So what are the odds, James, that by the end of this series, if not even by the end of this season, that daughter's dead? You think she's making it out alive?
My biggest issue with the show is I just don't know where you expect this to happen. It's not. So I don't know. Like I expect Cyril and Deidre, whatever her name is, I like them to team up, but they're like, nope. But also she got him a promotion. Like, I don't know. They're playing the long game, which I really appreciate. And they have a plan, obviously. And
thank you, writers.
Maybe the daughter goes the way of the dodo. I'm not sure. I'm gonna go full Bronc on it. But then you bring up like Perrin, because this is where I was at. Like, is Perrin gonna be in with the rebels? That like, is it so obvious that that's not what they're gonna do at this point now? Because if I figured it out at this point, the writers have. So are they gonna that's not the direction we're going? So I for the daughter dying, I have to cheap out and go full Brock because I think I don't know. Here's the thing, Andrew, and I'm mumbling because I'm not even sure or rambling. I'm not even sure if Mon Mothma needs an extra push to get where she goes because she's already on that trajectory. So I'm not sure, but at the same time, something could happen and the daughter would be the one to go because we know she's not in Return of the Jedi and she's never been mentioned in any of the literature that we've got in the 7 years of Journey to the Force Awakens, right? Or the 10 years of Disney Lucasfilm. So I don't know. What are your odds?
I'm torn because I feel like now that we have shed all this light on Mon Mothma, I feel like I have to add a new thing, a new moment to the very small list of moments that I've always said we need to see happen in Star Wars. And it was the list only had 2 things on it, and we finally got both of them in the Disney era, which is Darth Vader finding out Luke is his son. We got that in the comics. And Obi-Wan finding out that Anakin and Darth Vader are still alive and they are one and the same. We finally got that this year in the Obi-Wan show. Those were the 2 crucial things that I think we needed to see. And I feel like I need to add another thing to the list now that's not as crucial, but now that Mon Mothma has become a bigger player, it kind of is. And that thing is, we need to see the moment when the Empire, whether that's Palpatine himself or whoever, but let's just say the Empire realizes they can't trust her anymore. We need to see that moment happen. Well, I mean, trust is kind of a nebulous thing in the Empire, but they're letting her walk the streets safely. This show has proven that they can lock you up and throw away the key for absolutely nothing, just on a whim. And they are not, they're not beneath, or rather, they're not they have no qualms about doing all kinds of horrible things to people in the name of their own sick, twisted idea of order. So,
but do they ever discover that she's a rebel?
That's a good point. Yeah, you're right. Well, if the Senate is dissolved, which it is, what is she doing afterwards? What's her job? Is she unemployed? Is she just full-time running the
rebellion? That is what I would
like
to see.
Yeah. What's that like? That obviously sounds like a much more season 2 thing, but I feel like
late season 2.
Yeah, but the tension you could get in the room, and again, maybe this is just me being biased because it means we get some more Uncle CVP, but the levels of tension. I don't know, but just think of that tension you would have if you have a bunch of high-ranking Imperial senators invited to a dinner with Palpatine, whatever. He invites some senators to dinner or something. And the whole time, Mothma is there, and we and her are all thinking, does he know? Does Palpatine know? And we get that moment of the Empire finding out, and she kind of has to run away. She can't stay. If they find out about her, she cannot stay on Coruscant. She can't stay in that apartment. It just can't happen. She will be killed. So you make a good point. Maybe they never find out. But
what could be cool, actually, because we haven't seen Bail Organa yet, and I'm not even sure if we're going to. Mm-hmm. But obviously Bail is in Rogue One, and this is a prequel to Rogue One, so it makes sense for Bail Organa to be in it. Because I don't think they can know that Bail Organa's in on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or maybe they do find out that Bail Organa is it, but then she's like, actually, it's not him, it's me, and she takes the heat for him. And then you find out very subtly that maybe blowing up Alderaan was always part of the plan because of Bail's turn against the Empire.
Okay.
It wasn't
Yeah.
just a random planet. Like it wasn't, it was more because Bale and Leia, they knew all along that they were in on it. I don't know. But I like your idea. I hope we get to see CVP, but you kind of feel like they're staying away. They're going to stay away from the A team of Star Wars characters. They're going to stick with their B team, and they're going to stick with it. They're going to do everything they do with the B team. They're going to do with it as well as they can, and it's going to feel like the A team.
I feel like you're right. That just seems to be the kind of show they're making. But again, just purely from a selfish standpoint, they have done such a good job, particularly this last episode, episode 9, of showing just how damn scary the Empire is. So imagine this writing team, this directing team, calling up Ian McDiarmid and saying, we need you for one scene, and we are playing it not as, delicious evil Sith Lord, but we're just playing it straight up tense horror. And all you're doing is sitting at a table talking to senators, but we're playing it as if the double agent Nazi commander is at a table with all the high command, and the Fuhrer is there, and we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and we're waiting for them to look at that double agent and say, I know you're not one of us. And I think Ian McDiarmid would totally be on board with that. And I think that that's something that would fit the show if they play it in that straight way. If he's not sitting there like, lightning, but he's just sitting there talking.
Yes. I'm with you. I think it would be great seeing he is the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And they could write him the way they write the Imperial. They write the Imperials better than anybody's ever written the Imperials ever. Maybe since A New Hope. You can't forget the original and whatever. And they are written similar to we haven't seen them like that in forever. And it's great. It would be great to see the Emperor in that way. I think he makes sense in this story. I don't think Vader necessarily makes sense in this story.
No.
Because we get Vader in Rogue One, and I don't think we need him until Rogue One, but I think CVP definitely makes a lot of sense. I gotta say, Deidre's turning into one of the best characters in Star Wars, and I hope they just don't off her by the end of the show. I hope she's alive and well, forever. Do you know, like she just dies an old lady after Return of the Jedi sometimes. She just dies.
Especially because Hasbro's clearly not giving me a Black Series of her, so we need her to live on in memory somehow. I got a question about Deidre for you, though. What do you think of this whole Cyril is obsessed with her and he's a crazy stalker kind of thing?
I told you, I have no idea what the hell to make of anything on this show. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that, but then I'm like, I should have expected that because that's kind of, but then she gave him a promotion. So I'm like, I can't figure out, her character seems pretty straightforward, right? Mm-hmm. She's going to figure it all out. Unless she ends up being a rebellion and she's doing all this, but she's not because she tortured the hell out of Bix. But I can't figure him out. I don't know what his arc is. Do you know, where does he go from here? What is his purpose on the show? And I don't mean that negatively, what's his purpose? I mean that in we're going to find out, but I'm eager to find out.
I am too. I really can't track Cyril's course here. You're right. It's too unpredictable. But this scene of him playing the stalker here, this really fascinated me for one big reason, and that big reason is this: I'm fascinated by how this would affect Deidre. I don't think she's the kind of person. I feel like she knows, hey, you're a creepo, stay away from me. At least any sort of anybody with any brain cell would understand that this guy's a creepo. But I find it fascinating because of the fact that she's an Imperial officer. And the thing about the Imperial officers, James, is that every single one of them that we've ever gotten has been extremely asexual. They are just not sexual creatures at all. They're just stiff, starch shirt, really severe British people who are just all about getting down to the bottom line and doing the best I can for the good of the Empire, right? They have no concept of sex or romance. Like, it's just not part of their vocabulary. So when I saw this happen, I thought, does Deidre know, being an Imperial officer and a high ranking one at that, does she know what the difference is between a healthy relationship and a not healthy relationship? Because that would be fascinating to play with.
She definitely doesn't. She's an Imperial.
Exactly. That already is a strike against her. Like, a person who knows that difference and can make that distinction would look at Cyril Karn and be like, buddy, get away from me or I'm calling the stormtroopers. But can we make that assumption of her? She's not, we can't just easily say, yeah, she understands because we do. She's not like us. She's an Imperial officer. And what does that mean? So I'd be curious to see how they treat the idea of an Imperial officer and what they think a healthy relationship is. Because we already know Cyril's not playing with a full deck. So I'd just be really, really interested to see that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't even know any of it. Like, these characters are, like you said, like we've never gotten this deep into an Imperial character, though. They've always been the side character, right? Like Tarkin, you never get anywhere past their offices. So it is intriguing, and it is something that I hope these writers explore. I think, because I don't know where the hell this show's going. We know it ends with Rogue One in 5 years. That's what we know. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what the end game is for either one of these two Imperials. You feel like they're going to... The only thing... Here's the thing, Andrew, is next year is going to be 4 years long. Every year is going to be 3 episodes. That's fast-paced. Unless every episode is like 6 hours. Like, it's fast-paced. So how much longer are they going to be able to build their relationship, right? Like, in any capacity?
Well, if they're smart, and so far the writers have proven that they can play with those time gaps in really cool ways. You know, I think of the moment...
Andor's been in prison for a month, by the way. Sorry to interrupt. Andor's been in prison for a month.
Just a month, huh?
Well, if you listen, I believe Andy Serkis says he has 249 days remaining, and this week he said 217 days remaining.
Okay, so he had 30-something shifts.
Yeah,
and we don't know how much sleep they get. So, but yeah, roughly 30 days. But yeah, if they play with the time in really cool ways, like I always think of the scene in Citizen Kane, the montage where you see him getting farther and farther away from his wife at the breakfast table as they get wealthier and wealthier and as time goes on. Like, imagine...
I've always thought Star Wars and Citizen Kane are similar, yeah.
Yeah, so they're just, you know, you can't distinct the two. I don't know which one to shoot. So imagine ending one of those 3-episode arcs with some, you know, or rather beginning one of those 3-episode arcs in a way that says, like, oh, wow, we have missed a lot because now these two characters are here and now that person is married to this person. Like, they can really throw us for a loop with some of that. And have us asking questions about those gaps. I'm really looking forward to it.
Can't wait. So much to explore with this show. Every week is it's a treat. It's so different from any other Star Wars we've ever gotten into. It's just I just love what we're getting.
Yeah, and I hope it creates a sort of path where now, yes, creators will still make a lot of content. I shouldn't say that word. I'm sorry. It's a bad word. I don't like saying content. Pretend I didn't say
garbage. Garbage word.
It is. It's a garbage word. It shouldn't exist. I hope we get a world where creators are still making shows and films that feel like regular classic Star Wars, like kind of like how Mandalorian felt. But we also get people playing in this kind of sandbox, and Disney lets them do what they're doing there. Because we already have the middle ground, which is like Mandalorian. We already have lots of kid-friendly stuff in the books and comics too. I don't want to see rated R stuff. That doesn't match Star Wars to me, but stuff like Andor, why not? Bring it all on.
Agreed. I think this is as dark as you want to take Star Wars.
Yeah.
Or not dark, but as close to R as you want to go with Star Wars, I think.
James, do you think there's a Gungan in that prison?
Absolutely not.
No, they only imprison humans here. Hey, some types of alien creatures, maybe they're immune to the electricity in the floor, so maybe they're at a different prison. That's why. All right.
Yeah, maybe.
That's going to be the finale. Episodes 11 and 12 is just getting into the Gungan prison. We are going home!
I wish.
We're seeing that. James, thank you so much for driving home and not paying attention to the road while we talk about Andor. Let me close on one thing, James. If you had carte blanche right now, you get to pick one species of alien that shows up in season 1 of Andor in these next 3 episodes. What species are you picking?
Gungan.
I think I would be right there with you. But since you said Gungan, let me swing for a different fence here. I'm gonna say whatever Zuckuss is. A Gand. He's called a Gand. I'm gonna go with the Zuckuss aliens because we haven't seen them in a while. So let's get some Gand up in here. Hashtag Gandor.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Brutal.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for driving home with us. Thank you for this very lively chat. I can't wait to go buy some Bantha Crunch or whatever you guys said they should call it, because that sounds just delicious. James, you are now a father, so you are the Mandalorian in real life, but you were also always Scum.
Rebel Scum?
Yeah. Gandor.